Hey, going everybody, Classy here. Today I want to show you something that's a little bit peculiar. Maybe not so much peculiar, maybe if you're the kind of person who just drives a car and doesn't understand the benefits of this thing right here. I'm like, do you know how hard this is to point with? Where is my hand even? Okay. Um, so this here is obviously a bicycle, right? But these things I think are probably one of the better inventions that humanity has ever come across. And the reason being is because these things are completely and utterly functional. They're functional not only as a leisure item, but they're also function as a utility. Right now I've got this bike here, which is a 2017 Giant ATX1, and I have this set up as a commuter. So right now I've got, if I can angle the camera right here, you can see right there is a bicycle trailer. This here is a single wheel trailer. And the whole reason why I want to make this video right here, aside from the fact that it's just a really sunny and beautiful day, is because that there, or at least the concept of carrying more than a backpack's worth of stuff, is a bit of a contested issue, and it may be a bit of confusing for a lot of people. Whenever I've gone onto YouTube and looked up, cargo bikes or bicycle trailers or even sort of all that kind of thing, these things are usually left to sales or maybe somebody talking about their personal experiences with this sort of thing, which leaves a lot of people very confused about the nature of this and the varieties that these trailers can actually come in. Right, so let me just flip the camera around if I fly, and I want to show you this here. So this here is a single wheel trailer. This was originally a Vevor XL trailer. They don't actually make these anymore, but if you want to find something similar, or at least the platform that this is built upon, you can go to Walmart and find the Walmart single wheel trailer, which is basically exactly the same thing. On this one in particular, I made a couple of changes, which is pretty obvious. Originally it was a folding trailer, and I decided to weld some, sort of essentially weld it shut. And instead of having the thin pieces of sheet steel just there on these little badly welded hinges, I decided to actually weld sort of like a, essentially sort of frame, extra bits of frame just on the bike here. Secondly, I suppose, I replaced the rear linkage with something that was a little bit more structurally sound. The original linkage didn't look like this at all, but it was actually just a single piece of essentially this stuff here. It just came around to like a weird sort of mechanism with like these really weak little springs on there, and there wasn't actually sort of a shock here. I suppose the shock linkage just here is a bit sort of a bit too sort of steep of an angle. If I wanted to sort of build this differently, I would build the linkage up a little bit higher, so you would essentially have less I suppose axial force like being applied on there, because and the other thing too, I really want to replace that spring with something a little bit lighter, because 750 pounds, completely silly. The final thing that I did with this trailer is that the original hitch mounting point on here was really bad. It would just disconnect and essentially come loose all the time. So I welded in a D-shackle just here, and the I suppose the screw for the D-shackle is just being held on with this little chain here, so it don't actually lose it. It's with the trailer all the time. Right, a couple of things I changed with the bike is I replaced the rotors with bigger ones. So the bike originally came with 160mm rotors. I replaced them with 180mm front and rear. And then I put this kickstand on here. The kickstand here seems to be doing okay, right? It doesn't seem to be causing the bike any problems. I've had it maybe on here for about a month. This is the first time in my life that I've loaded this up with what I believe is the maximum load capacity of about 40 kilos. But anyway, to give you a sense of that, it actually is 40 kilos. This cast iron flywheel is about 20 kilos. Then there's this bag here, which is like a 10 kilo chest piece for, weight thing. And then you can really tell that I use it all the time. And then we've got these two 4 kilo weights just in here. So that sort of accounts for about, 10, 30, 38, close to 40. Plus maybe 2.5 kilos for the trailer. So 40 kilos in total. Right, so with this trailer in particular, if you can just bear with me while I just unload the trailer so I can actually show you. Because, okay, hang on, let me just, all right, so to give you a sense of what we're looking at just here, what we're looking at here is a single wheel trailer, a single wheel dual hitch trailer type. Now, trailers come in all different types of things, right? You've got the single wheel and then your dual wheel, right? And the single wheel and the dual wheel sort of come in sort of two separate things, right? So the single wheel, you've either got the type here, which is a single wheel attached via the, you know, sort of attached in the way that it is, or you've got the extra wheel, which is its own little thing. The extra wheel is just putting a pannier on the back on a third wheel, and that pannier acts as the carrying sort of implement, so you're not having to carry the extra mass of a aluminium, or in this case a steel frame. The two-wheel single hitch variation, you know, I'll get into that a little bit later, but the two-wheel single hitch variant is a cheaper option for people that want to get into the whole idea of bicycle commuting, or even turning their bike into a cargo capacity vehicle, I suppose, without having to spend many thousands of dollars on a cargo bike. Because at this stage, cargo bikes are big, they're unwieldy, they're extremely expensive, and if you're like me and you don't really have the space for something that's about the length of this, that's an entirely other bike, then a trailer is right for you. So this is something that's almost never discussed on these kinds of videos that talk about the benefits of these trailers, or at least the sort of how these trailers function as a complete package with the bicycle. So in this bike in particular, it uses a quick release skewer, right? Quick release skewer front and rear. And in this case, I have replaced the quick release skewer with this specially made skewer that you can actually buy as a separate thing. You don't actually need to have one of these made. And essentially sort of a hardened steel, a chunk of hardened steel sort of front and rear. The actual, you know, sort of the quick release lever is on the other side. And what it is essentially just sort of like a pivoting sort of like thing that allows the trailer to hook onto the bike. As you can see, sort of like it's still sort of fairly perpendicular to the rest of the bike, even with all of that extra weight on there. This thing is perfectly adequate sort of for the amount of weight that these things kind of carry. But this is but one mechanism by which these operate. When I bought this trailer originally, it had come with these, I suppose, nuts that look like this, but instead of threading onto a quick release skewer, it's threaded onto a 3/8 or 10 mil axle, which is essentially sort of operates in exactly the same principle as this. You would replace the nuts on your bike with these nuts that look like this. The flats are on the inside part of here, just in here, and you would essentially just thread it on, and then that would be they would act as the joints from which the trailer would attach. Now, in the case of these dual hitch trailers types, you can actually buy a Thru Axle, which has these parts that would thread onto the inside of the axle, right? So you would thread the axle through, you would screw it in, and there would be a thread sort of on the inside of it, or at the very least that instead of being sort of a flat Allen sort of screw that would hold the through axle in place, you would have one of these that would thread into the axle instead, which is again pretty well the same principle, but you would have to look for a through axle trailer adapter for your particular needs. In the case of hooded dropouts, I have heard that hooded dropouts are a little bit peculiar because the frame sort of hyperextends through this sort of like hooded shape, means that adapting a trailer to that sort of thing is a little bit peculiar. So if you're like me, then you've probably seen the single hitch dual wheel trailers that a lot of people will sort of talk about. And how they work is, you'll have to excuse me because I'm kind of bad at drawing, that you'll have the back wheel here, and then you'll have essentially a hitch that sort of just comes off of here, and then the trailer that looks like this, right? And So like you'll have the frame like this, and there's the back wheel, you know, sort of, and the hitch will just be sort of randomly attached here. And you'll probably be wondering, how on earth does that even work? Is there some kind of like special connection or something? Do you need a particular type of bike in order to make this kind of thing happen? Right, so no. So how this works is that through this hole here, you'll either have your either sort of like a nuts, or maybe a maybe sort of like the quick release skewer. Pretend that's a quick release skewer. Like I said, it's kind of all bad, right? But this piece here sort of comes off at an angle, right? So how this part works is if we sort of come over here and then just sort of pretend that is that, but like we've got the hole that goes through here. That hole carries a, well, it looks like a pin, right? So you'll have a pin, and you'll have this pin that will sort of come through here. This piece of spring steel, right? So that pin will sort of like go through the, essentially the other side of the axle, right? So you'll have a sort of a hollow bar just here that sort of is this part of the trailer just over here. I'm sorry if this is all very confusing. And that there will have an accompanying hole that this pin here attaches the trailer to this. So the part that looks like, this is the part that is permanently attached to the bike. And you can buy multiples of these things here. Now, I mentioned in the case of either standard nuts or quick release skewers, right? In the case of through axles, and I've heard this before, and I've seen this kind of system before, is that you'll have your, say like your quick release axle, pretend that there's the axle, right? And how it works is that you've got these threads here, you thread that, you push that into the frame, and that there will just thread into the, you know, the wheel here. So you'll have like the hollow, you know, your bearing just here, and that screws into there, and you'll have like a little Allen hex key there for your, like your Allen hex to go in, right? I'm not too sure exactly how this works, or how sort of like through axles particularly work, but let's assume, yeah. Anyway, so what will happen for your single hitch dual wheel trailers is that there will be a threaded hole just in here for an accompanying screw to thread into, which will clamp this part onto the outside part of this, right? So you'll have your quick release, sorry, your through axle, then you'll have this part, and then from there you'll have essentially just a screw, right? The threads will be here, so you'll go quick release skewer, the coupler, and then the screw, or yeah, and then that will essentially clamp that onto there, which allows you to attach your single hitch dual wheel trailers. The single hitch dual wheel trailers are a lot less expensive than your single wheel dual hitch trailers, because this mechanism here is a universal fitment, whereas my trailer, or at least other single wheel trailers, will have their own little proprietary thing that will come with the trailer. And unfortunately, getting the couplers for those, which is either, you know, specialty skewers, specialty nuts and bolts, specialty through axles, that sort of thing, you know, adds to the addition, you know, are all additional cost factors to this. Right. So how single wheel dual hitch trailers work when they have this sort of like randomly sort of flimsy thing is that on the trailer, from the point where it attaches to the bike, you'll have a spring here, right? And this spring allows the trailer to sit coplanar to the ground. So pretend that there's the trailer and that there's the ground, right? So the bike can, so this here is the bike, and the bike can swing either this way or this way, depending on, you know, what you're doing, whereas the trailer can sit planar to the ground surface, right? And this is what this coupler does. In the case of single wheel trailers like this one over here, the trailer will swing with the bike, right? So we have a pivoting point just here, which allows the trailer to track with the bike, and then we've got this pivot just over here, which allows the trailer to essentially follow the curvature of the ground without it, you know, sort of causing an extraordinary amount of force and pressure on everything, because the trailer is completely fixed to the you know, set to that sort of like plane of the bicycle, right? So these trailers are designed to sort of swing with the bike. These trailer types are attached in such a way that allows that allows the trailer to be quite narrow compared to the bike. So as you can see from the pedals, it's not that much wider. In the case of your dual wheel trailers, the trailer is actually very square, right? So it'll be a bit wider, or maybe sort of a bit longer, that sort of thing. You actually have a lot more freedom of range with your dual wheel trailers. The dual wheel trailers are a lot more popular as well, because you can get these essentially sort of like kid carriers. Sort of like a covered thing. It has two wheels. You can put a third wheel in the front, so it can become a pram when you park the bike somewhere, and you can sort of put up to 2 children in there, without all that much trouble. Right. So on to other types of trailers, such as, I believe it's called the Burley coho, which are trailers that will attach to the seat post. So trailers that attach to the seat post can either come out and down, such as the Burley coho. It looks like a golf caddy. Or you've got other trailers which essentially attaches to here and comes down to a trailer that is either a dual wheel or triple wheel trailer, such as the Cargo, I believe it's called, the Cargo, which is a 3-wheel trailer with electric assist and emergency brakes, which is of course really cool. But you're probably hearing all of this thing and thinking, classy, these trailers are very big. They look very big, they're very unwieldy. What am I supposed to do if this size here is the absolute maximum limit of what I can actually realistically achieve? These things are expensive, they take up a lot of space. It honestly looks like that, that there is just adds an extra sort of level of complexity to this. That there does not match what I want for my bike. So let me tell you something. The method by which we can actually sort of carry stuff on a bicycle, I've only sort of really run you through trailers because I'm most familiar with trailers, but in my bit of research looking at whether trailers would work for me or other methods will work for me, I decided with the trailer. But I'll tell you a little bit about what other methods there are, right? So if we come around here to this part of the bike here, we actually have these little mounting points there, here and down right there. You can sort of see that little hole. There's one, an accompanying one just on the other side, believe it or not. And these 2 holes just here allow for a thing called a pannier to attach to the bike. And so what a pannier is a rack that sort of that goes over the top of the back wheel here. Don't worry, they're all covered underneath, so you won't get mud sort of like all over your precious goodies. And what these do is all of the weight back there sits here. I didn't want a pannier because I like the idea of having a bike that I can continue using as a performance sports implement without having to go through the process of removing the trailer, or like putting the panniers on, taking the panniers off. The rack would sort of, add sort of like this little rattly element to it. In the case of this, I decided to put the stand on there, because I haven't done that in a long time. But anyway, so a pannier essentially gives you a flat surface here and 2 mounting points on either one or both sides of the bike, so you can attach these big bags called pannier bags, which you can stuff all sorts of things in there. Instead of giving you horizontal space, it gives you vertical space on the side of the bike. The thing with those, however, is that you've got to be a little bit even with how much weight you put on one side versus the other, given the fact that, you are very high on the bike. If you put a lot of weight on one side, the bike will tilt one side to the other. The other method, which is more akin for bike packers, is bike bags, so frame bags. So when I say frame bags, you can either have a bag here, you can have a bag here, you can have bags up the front here, you can tie bags to the sides of the bike, you can have bags over the back of the saddle here, you can have bags just all over the bike. Then these like frame bags, saddlebags, handlebar bags are all more commonly associated with bikepackers or bicycle tourers because the three-dimensional footprint is very minimal compared to a trailer or even a pannier. But I've been running this trailer here for about 5-6 years now. I don't use it every day, but I use it enough that I would heavily recommend anybody to go it. See, I suppose for anybody you would think, oh, I don't really want to sort of ride a bike everywhere because I need the carrying capacity to, essentially sort of cart groceries and all sorts, sort of like from the shops to my house and versus blah, blah, blah. And having something like a backpack is a little bit silly, right? Because what is this backpack going to do? It's going to be sweaty. It's going to, destroy my shoulders, that sort of thing. And there's really not that much I can sort of really fit in here. But I suppose if you compare the size of this bag to this trailer, I mean, I can fit that entire bag in this trailer with room to spare, and it's going to keep all of that weight off of my shoulder. It means that I can continue operating a bicycle and commute with a bicycle without having to worry about whether or not I have the space or carrying capacity to do what I want to do, because it is all right there and it is all completely, sort of in this one extremely long package. I hope this video has kind of helped you with, with understanding sort of all these little bits of confusing do-wackies, and I hope to sort of see you, the next time. Take care.